Thank you, Wellesley College Choir. What an inspiring way to start our evening. Thank you very, very much. President Johnson, distinguished alumni, students, parents, faculty, staff, and guests, good evening. My name is Martha Goldberg Aronson from the class of 1989, and I currently serve as the president of the Wellesley College Alumnae Association. And it is a great pleasure and honor to welcome you to the 50th anniversary of the Alumnae Achievement Awards ceremony. This award was established by the Alumnae Association to recognize the outstanding accomplishments of Wellesley graduates, and this award remains the highest honor that Wellesley bestows. Over the last 50 years, this award has been earned by scientists, artists, entrepreneurs, judges, and journalists. We've recognized doctors, advocates, business leaders, educators, historians, authors, and astronauts. Past recipients not only represent an extensive range of fields, they come from class years that span from 1909 to 1994. Many of the awardees faced challenges that paved the way for the Wellesley graduates who followed them, as well as the students of today. During this 50th celebration year, we heard from awardees who during their time at Wellesley could not have imagined the accomplishments that were in their future. Success came from just as many winding journeys as direct paths. Tonight, we are honored to have with us a number of past Achievement Award recipients. If you would please stand and be recognized as I call your name, I would appreciate that. And I would kindly ask the audience to hold your applause until I have announced all the names. Susan McGee Bailey, class of '63, recipient in 2012. Judy Rollins Bigby, class of '73, recipient in 2007. Elise Cherry, class of '75, recipient in 2017. Jean Kilborn, class of '64, recipient in 2015. Janet Parker Whitla, class of '52, recipient in 2010. And Luella Gross Goldberg, class of '58, recipient in 2002. Also, trustee emerita, and I'm proud to say, my mom. In case we have missed any other recipients, are there any other recipients in the audience tonight? Okay, great. Well, you all remain an incredible Oh, I'm sorry, we have one.
It's okay.
Tell
Maria Barlow.
Maria Barlow, class of 71. Please rise, Maria. The oak tree is an integral part of the Wellesley College tradition. The oak leaf pin that is presented to each Alumnae Achievement Award recipient symbolizes the strength, quality, and durability of the college and our alumni. The acorn, also represented on the pin, reminds us of our own potential to turn our time at Wellesley into a life of purpose, meaning, and positive impact. Over 150 alumni have received the esteemed pin and the distinction of being an Alumnae Achievement Awardee. And this evening, we are thrilled to add 2 more remarkable women to that list. As you can imagine, it takes an enormous amount of time and effort to select the recipients of this award. This very important work is carried out by the Alumnae Achievement Awards Selection Committee. This group is charged with the daunting task of selecting from among Wellesley's remarkable alumni body a few individuals who have brought particular honor to themselves and to the college through demonstrated excellence in their chosen fields. Committee members meet throughout the year, carefully reading thousands of pages of information about the nominees' work and professional achievements. We'd like to extend our heartfelt thanks to the selection committee members for their dedication and care throughout the selection process, both those members who chose tonight's honorees as well as those who will carry this important work forward. I would like to introduce each one of these committee members and ask again that you hold your applause until I finish reading the names. And if the committee members could please stand when I call your name. Our committee chair, Karen Whitley, class of 90. Sadie Burton-Goss, class of 78. Andrea Goodman, class of 92. Marcia Ishizuka, class of 81. Willa Jean McLean, class of 77. Beth McKinnon, class of 72. Jackie Masacchio, class of 89. Laura Prado, class of 90. And although not able to be with us tonight, Nandini Naki, class of 02, is also a member of the committee. Please join me in thanking this committee. Also tonight here with us, we are joined by the Wellesley College Alumnae Association's Board of Directors. We have all just finished 2 days of meetings here on campus, and I have to say I am absolutely honored to work with this incredible group of volunteer leaders. So could the Wellesley College Alumnae Association Board please stand up? And for those who've not yet met her, we have a new executive director of the Wellesley College Alumnae Association, Catherine McIntosh, class of 03. And finally, tonight we're also honored to have another special group with us, and those are the members of the Friends of Wellesley College Athletics National Committee. In fact, they wrapped up their meeting early in order to attend tonight's ceremony. So could the members of the Friends of Athletics National Committee please stand up? Thank you all for being here. And they all know, as a former tennis player, I've got a warm spot in my heart for that group. So thank you all for your service to the college. And now, to help me present tonight's awards, we are honored to have the 14th president of Wellesley College join us, President Paula Johnson.
Thank you, Martha, and it's wonderful to be here. What a remarkable milestone, a half a century. The Alumnae Association has kept the tradition of celebrating the outstanding accomplishments of Wellesley alumni in a wide range of fields. And for those of you who may be new to Wellesley, I just urge you, when the ceremony is over, as you're going down to the reception, to just walk the halls of Alumni Hall on this floor and below, and just take in the remarkable alumni who have received this award. And it is just so wonderful to have our two new recipients to add to that beautiful wall. Each honoree of the Alumnae Achievement Award is distinguished by the way her unique path from Wellesley forward has led to significant contributions in improving the world. She shares the determination of all of our graduates to make their difference. Over the years, recipients have been drawn from a vibrant collection of majors, proving the rigor and dynamism of a liberal arts education and demonstrating time and time again that a Wellesley woman's place in the world is wherever she chooses it to be. The only typical path for a Wellesley alumna is the one she forges with the courage and passion of her own convictions. In just a moment, we'll present each Alumnae Achievement Award, but first I'd like to turn it back over to Martha, who'll introduce again the Wellesley College Choir. Martha.
Thank you so much, President Johnson, and thank you for your outstanding stewardship of Wellesley College. In just a moment, as President Johnson said, we will present the 2019 Alumnae Achievement Awards. But once again, we will now hear from the Wellesley College Choir, who will perform One Voice by Ruth Moody. The choir is conducted by Lisa Graham, the Evelyn Berry Director of Choral Music and Lecturer in Music here at Wellesley. It is now my privilege and great pleasure to introduce to you the recipients of the 2019 Alumnae Achievement Award. Carol Remmer Angle, class of 1948. Carol Remmer Angle is a world expert on lead poisoning and co-founder of one of the country's first poison control centers. Her work relating to lead and arsenic exposure has had a significant and lasting impact on environmental health globally. Throughout her half-century career as a pediatrician, toxicologist, and educator, Carol broke barriers in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. At Wellesley, Carol majored in English literature. She then went on From there, she went to receive her medical degree from Cornell University Medical College. Carol's work ethic was instilled in her at a very early age. The daughter of German immigrants, she spent her days peeling shrimp for her family's seafood restaurant. She learned about Wellesley from her sisters-in-law, who urged her to apply. While pursuing her English literature major, Carol had a bit of an epiphany and determined that she wanted to study medicine. So she tacked on the course requirements for medical school and applied to Cornell University Medical College. Carol finished her residency in 1954, completing 2 years at New York Hospital and the final year at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. She was one of the early full-time faculty at Nebraska, and she jumped at the chance to do many different things, including researching the effects of lead poisoning. Carol teamed up with a close friend, pediatrician Matilda Tilly McIntyre, a Mount Holyoke graduate who was then the medical director at the county health department. The pair quickly linked the lead poisoning they were observing in children to Omaha's lead smelting and battery reclamation plants. Along with testing blood levels in children and factory workers, Carol also began monitoring lead levels in the air, soil, and water near the plants and throughout the city, becoming one of the first to establish relationships between environmental lead and blood lead levels. In 1957, Carol and Tilly co-founded one of the country's first poison control centers at the Children's Hospital of Omaha. And in 1958, Carol became a founder of the American Association of Poison Control Centers, serving as the program chair from 1977 to 1979. Carol was involved in a national campaign for stricter lead standards that culminated in the Clean Air Act of 1970. Her research on air lead was used as evidence to support removing lead from gasoline, which she considers her most important accomplishment. The connections that Carol established between environmental lead and blood lead levels were used to set national criteria for both. She also served as an expert witness in court cases for industrial contamination. Carol served as a consultant for the Environmental Protection Agency, the National Institutes of Health, and the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. Lead poisoning was far from Carol's only focus. She traveled to India for her research on arsenic poisoning. In addition, she was a self-taught pediatric nephrologist, and she started a pediatric dialysis unit at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. She also established new medical boards in poison control and toxicology, co-founded the American Academy of Clinical Toxicology, and spent over a decade as editor-in-chief of the Journal of Toxicology, Clinical Toxicology. Carol was elected chair of the Department of Pediatrics at the University of Nebraska Medical Center from 1981 to 1985, becoming one of the first women in the country to hold such a post. And she held other positions there, including Director of Clinical Toxicology and Professor of Pediatrics prior to her retirement in 1999. Carol and Paula, could you please join me at the podium? Carol, for your remarkable half-century career as a pediatrician and environmental toxicologist, for being a pioneer in children's environmental health, for your work that continues to have global implications on environmental health today, for your tenacity, your high standards, your intellectual integrity, and for your commitment to performing scientific research to uncover the facts, Wellesley honors you.
I'm President Johnson, President Aronson, Selection Committee, students, friends. I'm just overwhelmed by this honor. I'm stunned by it. And I say, well, how did I get here? How did I even get to Wellesley? I was the youngest of 5 in a German-American family that still runs a seafood restaurant out on Long Island. And my father had emigrated from Germany at age 17. My mother was first generation. She was also determined that all 5 of her kids would get good educations. So it seems that for years I heard nothing but variations on the theme. Study hard, you won't get a rowing scholarship like your brothers did, you know. She would have loved Title IX. Spend more time at the gym. Fortunately, as Dr. Anderson said, I had a sister-in-law who'd gone to Pembroke, wished she'd gone to Wellesley, and told me to apply, and with her direction and with the aid of a scholarship from Wellesley, from which I am eternally grateful, I found my luck out here in the fall of 1944 with living in Abbott House in the Ville. And I have a slide showing
They did it.
I got it up there. And there we are, penny loafers and all, saddle shoes, with friends I will never forget. And the knitting is a prop. I'd never knitted before, so I thought I should start at the top and make argyle socks. So I made, I very bravely promised them to the boy of the week, then the next boy, then the next one, and this went on until spring. Finally, the ruse began to lose its charm. I don't know. Maybe the Harvard students may have been less gullible than the MIT students. Maybe they had more socks. I don't know. Well, I was, back then, journalism seemed a lively career, so I started out, so I was an English major. And, but despite the joys of Shakespeare, they were taught by the formidable Catherine Baldiston, I became aware that air so rare really endured the dull eye of scorn, and I began casting about. And science appealed, but I felt my background was so limited, I didn't think I could go to graduate school. And one regret is I was so intimidated by the science faculty back in the 40s that I never discussed it with them. And all I can say to that is to the students today, talk to your faculty. They're paid to listen. We have, when we, I had also found out at that time that there was a possibility, there were other possibilities in the world. One winter day, I was walking along from Sage Hall. I'd been just suffering an hour in comparative anatomy, and the sun was glinting off Paramecium Pond, and I had the one and only epiphany of my life. I said, aha, I'll study medicine. That's the one and only celestial inspiration I've had. As I calculated, I've lived 48.2 million minutes. That makes the chance of an inspiration 1 in 50 million. I don't recommend it. But along with the inspiration, I also found out that Cornell accepted some students after just 3 years of college. So, and not only that, but thanks to arrangements by Dr. Connie Guyon, who was Wellesley 1906, Wellesley 1906 and Cornell 1917, that Wellesley would give me credit for the first year of science classes, and I could graduate with 1948 as an English major. So I also found out that, fortunately, Cornell, like Wellesley, offered financial assistance, again, for which I am deeply grateful. You know, when you give scholarships, you know that students are going to appreciate it all their lives. I really can't think of a better gift. I remember well Dr. Guyon was on the admissions committee, and she asked very strange questions, such as, what if you fall in love and want to marry? And I picked that up, and I said, oh, no, never, never. And then, and to which she said, in very kindly and helpful fashion, I would advise you not to have children. They are a serious distraction. At this point, I'd like to recognize my 3 favorite distractions. Dr. Marcia Angle, Dr. Fritz Angle, and my Monica Angle, my favorite painter. Once you're on path in medicine, the decisions come fast and not always intelligently made. I went into pediatrics simply because the residents on the service at that time were much kinder to women, less cutting than those, say, in internal medicine. I married Bill Angle, who had graduated from Harvard Medical, and he wanted to return to Nebraska, so my locale was set. And then at age 25, I had the onset of a severe familial nerve deafness. And so I thought that academic medicine might be more appropriate than private practice. I'm not sure why I wanted to inflict myself on the school. Back then at the University of Nebraska in Omaha, it was a 2-person department, so I taught everything and wrote on anything on which I thought might be published. And in addition to papers on lab work in lead poisoning, I published an early report on severe lead poisoning in a family of 7, including the pregnant mother and the newborn baby, from burning battery cases as fuel in the living room stove. And it turned out then that Omaha was an old lead city with a long history of smelters and battery reclamation plants. And as Dr. Aronson said, I had a very good friend, Dr. Matilda McIntyre from Mount Holyoke, who was in the county health department, and she was fielding complaints from workers near this smelting plant that they were poisoned by the bad air. What we did have was information on the dust fall lead, and we knew that outside of the plant, and we knew that was astronomically high. But there was, the workers continued to complain. We had no access to the plant. And finally they said, even the pigeons are dying. And so that was enough for us. One Saturday morning, research morning, we drove downtown, saw some dead pigeons at the Union Pacific lot, climbed the fence, retrieved them, took them to the lab, and for analysis. We were hooked. With that with that new information and some other, we gained access through the city and state departments to the plant, to the air, to the workers, and to children in the nearby schools, and used that to establish the criteria, which, as Dr. Aronson said, were used to establish the Clean Air Act and remove lead from gasoline. And so that, in effect, Tilly and I helped take the lead out of gasoline. I look back on that decision on climbing the fence. The only decision that really started that was just simply whether you should climb the fence, drive downtown and climb the fence or not. I look back at other decisions that were made and how you become involved in a specific topic. And I had the one celestial inspiration, but I do not recommend it. What I can say is that when you put time and effort into it, you become committed. Students are often told, find your passion. How do I know my passion? Will it last more than a semester? Is it even legal? All I can say is that when you put enough effort and time and thought and emotion and climb a fence or two, you find out if it sticks. And looking back at a whole lifetime of decisions, good, bad, chosen, enforced, about the only one I don't regret at all is the one my sister-in-law Lois made for me. Back in 1943. She said, go to Wellesley, they do things. She was right. I've been very lucky. I've been very fortunate. I've been able to do worthwhile work for 50 years. I helped clean up a leaded city in a leaded country. I helped take the lead out of gasoline, even if I never finished that sock. So thank you, Wellesley. Thank you all.
Wow. Okay. Diane Rowland, class of 1970. Diane Rowland is a nationally recognized health policy expert who has had a distinguished career in public policy and research. Throughout the past 40-plus years, Diane has been focused on access to care, health insurance coverage, and health financing for low-income populations. She has been instrumental in helping to transform Medicaid into a healthcare program that supports more people in need. Her voice has been persuasive as she's educated policymakers, the media, and the public about the program's importance. Diane holds a master's degree in public administration from the University of California at Los Angeles and a Doctor of Science in Health Policy and Management from the Johns Hopkins University. Coming to Wellesley a year after President Lyndon Johnson signed Medicaid into law, Diane majored in history and American studies. Experiences and lessons from her Wellesley years helped drive her focus on healthcare, as well as her commitment to studying topics from different perspectives. Diane has held critical roles in the U.S. federal government, including service on the staff of the Committee on Energy and Commerce in the House of Representatives, as well as senior health policy positions in the Department of Health and Human Services. After completing her doctoral degree, Diane taught health policy and management at Johns Hopkins. Most recently, Diane served for more than 2 decades as executive director of the Kaiser Commission on Medicaid and the Uninsured, which she co-founded in 1991 after the Kaiser Family Foundation awarded Johns Hopkins a grant to establish the commission. The commission, now called the Program on Medicaid and the Uninsured, has collected and analyzed countless pieces of data and policy at the state and federal level on eligibility and enrollment, spending, and coverage. In 1993, Diane became Senior Vice President and then Executive Vice President of the Kaiser Family Foundation, while keeping charge of the commission. Her expanded role included policy work on Medicare, employer-based coverage, HIV and AIDS, women's health policy, and global health. From 2010 to 2016, Diane also served as the inaugural chair of the Medicaid and Children's Health Insurance Program Payment and Access Commission, or MACPAC, a nonpartisan legislative branch agency that provides policy and data analysis and makes recommendations to Congress, the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and also states on issues affecting Medicaid and the state Children's Health Insurance Program. This year, Diane moved into a new position, Executive Vice President Emerita of the Kaiser Family Foundation, which will allow her to focus more on writing and teaching at Johns Hopkins, where she is an adjunct professor in the Department of Health Policy and Management at the Bloomberg School of Public Health. Diane has frequently testified as an expert witness before the United States Congress on issues related to health policy, Medicare and Medicaid, and health care for poor and disadvantaged populations. She has published widely on these subjects and is the editor of several books. She is also an elected member of the National Academy of Medicine. Diane takes a special interest in nurturing younger analyst careers, and she often imparts advice to fellow Wellesley graduates who work in healthcare policy. Diane and Paula, could you please join me at the podium? Diane, for your career-long commitment to public policy and research focused on access to care, health insurance coverage, and health financing for low-income populations, for building your career on data analysis and on being credible, for helping to bridge divides in healthcare policy, and for your dedication to developing the leadership potential of others, Wellesley honors you.
Well, thank you, President Johnson, President Erickson, and especially thank you to my colleague who is being honored today for being such a public health hero and path setter for those of us that have followed, and to the selection committee who chose us to be here today, and we thank you for the many pages you had to review of our resumes. It means so much to me to be here today because Wellesley has meant so much to me in my life. It's been a place to learn and grow, and those of us who were here in the 60s and 70s know what that means, to grow, to establish lifelong friends, to gain a network of women who have supported and embraced me in my career and in my life, and especially as a place that gave me the inspiration for my career working to improve access to care for the low-income and disadvantaged populations, and a place that really gave me the knowledge base and the confidence to pursue my dreams and fulfill my aspirations. So thank you, Wellesley, for all you did for me, and I hope I can give back as much to you. Going to Wellesley was really, we all have our pathways here. Mine was that I was growing up in a little town in Connecticut, and one of my college aspirations was to go somewhere where I could ski. But on the other hand, one of my fellow Easton residents, who was a student at Wellesley, said, well, before you make a decision to go to Vermont or something, why don't you come see Wellesley? And really, I think you'll like it. And I came to Wellesley, and I thought it was just really the perfect place for me. So I went back to my guidance counselor, and I told him that I was going to go to Wellesley. And he said, why would you do that? Why would you waste your father's money? You could find a perfectly good husband if you went to UConn. Now that was the first man whose advice I didn't take. There have been lots of others. And so I did come to Wellesley, and I'm so pleased that so many of my friends from Wellesley are here, because you do make lifelong friends at Wellesley. But being at Wellesley also gave me the inspiration that has been my career. It taught me to think about issues in a broader context than just being narrow. It taught me to be analytic, to try and figure out why one writer said something about an issue when another writer saw that same historical event through a different lens. It taught me to try to think about how to find solutions to problems and how to identify problems. And it really taught me to really look hard at what the impact of any policy is on people. And I learned that in part because I had a professor here who said, you're all reading these articles and books about poverty, about the inner city, about civil rights. Why don't you go out and try and see what it's like on the ground? So my senior year at Wellesley, instead of spending all my time at the library and in the dorm or going out to parties and other things, I did also go to Roxbury once a week and volunteer at the Roxbury Multi-Service Center, where I had work with a social worker who connected me with her clients, and I saw what happened to people who were low income, who couldn't get access to the kind of medical services they needed, and I saw the desperate need for mental health services that went unmet, and that these individuals had no dignity when they went to try and get care because it wasn't something they were supposed to be entitled to. And as was noted, Medicaid had just come into being enacted, and I thought, well, maybe if people had health care coverage, if they had this Medicaid program, then the providers would treat them differently and see them differently. And that began my crusade to try and improve the way in which we take care of the least among us with some of the most challenging health care problems, to try and find coverage for them, to try and connect them to the health system, and to try and make their lives better. It also taught me what has been the lesson I've tried to pass on to all who work with me, that everything is about people. Every time we do an analysis and produce a bunch of numbers and percents, behind every one of those percents, there's a human being who needs to be thought of as a human being, not as a statistic. And so we've tried in all of our work to really always put a face on the problem and to make sure we understand the implications of the policy changes for the people in need. And that's why, starting in Roxbury, Wellesley drove me on the right pathway to what I did through my master's and my graduate degrees, and to the analysis I continue to do on healthcare inequities, and to try and address them through both public service and public policy. And always remember, and I always have, the Wellesley motto, not to be ministered unto, but to minister. And I think that's a good rubric for us all to follow in our lives. The other thing about Wellesley that I think the students may not realize is that it never stops being part of you, that it will go out the door with you and connect you in ways you will never know to people who will be more important to you than you could imagine. You'll have your lifelong friends that you make at Wellesley, but you'll also have new Wellesley women that you will encounter in all kinds of healthcare or other situations. I used to look at the bios of individuals I was introducing on panels and be stunned. Oh, she was really a good speaker. Oh my goodness, she went to Wellesley. and to go to settings where you would be so surprised at the quality and the availability of their willingness to help you in any way. Once, oh, you're from Wellesley. Oh, I'm from Wellesley too. It's a very familiar thing, and I encourage the students to use that network. It is one of the best networks you will ever have. The old boys have had their networks. We have our Wellesley network. And I've benefited through that network from so many remarkable people who I've gotten to encounter and work with in my career, starting, of course, with our great First Lady, Hillary Rodham Clinton, and then on later to the trustees that served on my Kaiser Family Foundation board, Diana Chapman Walsh, and my dear friend and mentor, Cokie Roberts, who we just lost this month. But in the wide, wide world, please tap that Wellesley network. It's broad, often silent, but you can find it. And when you find it, you will find colleagues and friends with a very special bond that only you and they will know from having been through the Wellesley experience. And so if I need to really think about the choices I made them all kind of in sequence. Life evolves. It doesn't just happen. And I know many of the students I talked to today said, well, how did you know? When did you know what you wanted to do? I didn't have any Paramecian Ponds super moment. But as I worked, I saw new opportunities, and I tried to see more and more of where I wanted to go. And so my one piece of advice is, don't think when you walk out the door of Wellesley at your graduation, you have to have your whole life planned. Please don't plan it. Please let it happen. Please enjoy the time you have here. Treasure it, soak it up, use every minute of it, make lifelong friends here. But know that after you walk out this door, you will have many opportunities to shape your life and to change it as I did. And then also know that at Wellesley, you've gained the confidence that you should have in your ability to pursue your dreams. Let opportunities arise and take them. You don't need to have it all figured out. And the other thing I learned at Wellesley was, don't let the men always dominate the conversation. I learned that Wellesley women talk when they have something to say, and men talk to talk. And that in all of the meetings that I've gone to, the women always have, I think, the best comments and the way to really help shape the conversation. So be confident that you know more than most of the other people in any room you're talking, and that you should have the confidence to be able to make your way through anything you choose to do and pursue as a career. Second, reach out to that Wellesley network and let us give you the support, advice, or just a comforting hello as you move through that wide, wide world. This is a community, and you need to tap it, use it, and love it as I do. And finally, in you going forward, I know there's all kinds of career aspirations, and we're being honored for what we did in our careers, but really find balance in your life. Enjoy your friends, your family. Know that they will help sustain you through good times and bad, and just make sure that you really go through life with a sense of passion about whatever pathways you choose to follow and whatever family and friends you choose to connect with. But just enjoy life. This is a wonderful thing to know that you have had the opportunity to come here to Wellesley and to go forth and have additional opportunities. It's just been such a great honor to be able to connect with all of you today here, but especially in my career to be able to inspire people, to mentor people, and to know that even though I'm following in the pathway of my colleague here, that others will follow in my pathway, and that we will keep the Wellesley spirit alive, but we'll keep our commitment to making this place a better world for the people that live here in the future. So I thank you, and I congratulate my colleague, and know that the public health mission is in good hands as we entrust it to the next generation. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for all that you have given us, for all that you've done for the health of those in our country and the world. For 50 years, we've marveled at and celebrated the enormous talent, drive, and dedication of the Achievement Award recipients. What they have gone on to accomplish in their post-Wellesley lives is simply extraordinary. They are tremendously gifted. Each of the recipients of this award represent what we value most at Wellesley in terms of its liberal arts education, the transformative power of curiosity, and the pursuit of ideas through fact-based inquiry and critical thinking while embracing equity and opportunity for all. We take great pride in their success, and they inspire us to bring the same energy and purpose to our own pursuits.
Thank you all for joining the Alumnae Association tonight in honoring these remarkable women. At the conclusion of our ceremony, we invite you to join us downstairs in the ballroom for refreshments. I want to thank one more time the Wellesley College Choir and under the leadership of conductor Lisa Graham for sharing your incredible talents. And I'd also like to say thank you once again to the selection committee and to the Alumnae Association staff who organized this incredible evening. And now I'd like you all to please rise as the choir leads us in singing our alma mater. The lyrics can be found in your program.